right, everybody, welcome back. We've got the Hutzel Farmertec MS660 up on the table, and I built this 5 years ago. Like I talked about in some of the other previous videos, I did change some of the parts when I built this, but the core of the engine, the case, the crank, the bearings, the seals, piston and cylinder are Farmertec. They are the components that came with the saw. I've used the saw mostly for milling. I've done a little bit of tree service work with it and also some firewood. Anyways, we're going to take the top end of this off and we're going to have a look inside and see what we see. The saw doesn't have any running issues. I don't suspect that there's going to be anything super crazy in there. I've already done some disassembly, as you can see. I don't know if you'll be able to see in there or not, but there's the exhaust side. There is some uneven wear and maybe some really light scoring, but to my eye it doesn't look terrible. And the intake side is pretty tough to see. I don't know if you'll be able to see in there or not, but it's kind of similar. I did run a still HD filter on this from New, and it's been pretty good. One of these guys. Anyways, forgive me, I'm not a saw mechanic. This is the first saw I ever really worked on when I assembled it, and then there was a bunch of fiddling that I did along the way, but there's your plug for reference. Pretty dark, pretty oily. Especially early on, I ran a really heavy mix in this saw, like 32-1. And the reason I did that is because I was afraid of the, I was afraid that the bearings would give up. You know, I was afraid of premature wear and that the saw would fail, especially because I was milling with it. I was really worried about that. And as time went on, I changed that to 40-1 and eventually 50-1, but it's had a really heavy oil mix throughout its life, so. Oops. Better dig that out a little bit, I guess. I did do some kind of preliminary cleanup of the saw beforehand to try and save some time. It's still pretty gross, but not too worried about that, but I don't want to strip these. This guy looks okay. Mostly this side, I guess. But yeah, it's been a really good saw. I'm definitely not here to promote or talk down about the Farmertec kits. It's just been my experience, I guess. And the other thing too is that, like Walt would say from a fleet command, these are a moving target. They've made significant improvements over time, so you know, this might not be the most, well, it isn't the most up-to-date or current information on these, the best reflection of the kits. You know, they've changed over time. The quality has improved, I think, from what I've heard. But yeah, like I said, it's been 5 years. it definitely doesn't get daily use, especially not anymore. I've had a lot of saws in that time. For tree service, I mostly run for ground saws, a 372 and a 390. Those are OEM saws. Well, yeah, I rebuilt from the crank and bearings up. OEM cranks, SKF bearings, and then highway top ends, which I like. I think, you know, they're pretty good, pretty reasonably priced, and they seem pretty good. I have actually ordered a highway top end for this saw, for the 660, the Farmertec 660. I had kind of always planned to do that, and I feel like 5 years is a reasonable amount of time. Like I said, there's no running issue with this saw, but it's more out of curiosity. I kind of want to see how things have worn, and that might be interesting to some of you guys out there too. I know I'm not moving super fast, but I'm also not a saw mechanic, so I don't get paid by the hour. In fact, I don't get paid at all. So we still got our intake boot and pulse hose. So I want to be careful because I think I'm gonna reuse the intake boot. It is an OEM one. That's something that I installed at the start. And by the way, disclaimer, like I said, I'm not a saw mechanic, and whatever you see me doing on here may not be best practice, so just be aware of that, I guess. There may be better ways of doing things. It's not a how-to, it's just a look and see. Okay, we're in. Let's have a look here. Lots of oil on there. Like I said, I tend to run more oil probably than a lot of people would. Yeah, let's try and keep this stuff out of here. Looks pretty clean, pretty tidy. Probably should have done a better job of just really tight around the cylinder. I'll blow that out with air, the crankcase and everything before I reassemble. But let's just have a look here. I can see there's, you won't be able to see from where you are, I don't think, but the crank counterweight, or I think people call them lamb chops, or I'm not sure, but it looks like it's worn just a little bit of the paint off on the case, so it probably rubbed a tiny bit on the back there. Let's have a look at this piston. I kind of expected there to be a honestly thicker layer of carbon on there. Like I said, I ran a lot of oil in this saw. There is some, I don't know if you would call that unusual or not, but there is some sort of uneven wear on this piston on the exhaust side. There's maybe some really light scoring, but you can see there's kind of some spots that are shinier than others. That's kind of interesting. The bottom of the piston skirt appears to be fairly polished, and maybe the top less so. Maybe the rings are taking up some of that, but a little bit of discoloring there. I guess that's blow by. Would that be oil? I'm not sure that would cause that. The rings are definitely free. They're pretty happy. There's the intake side. Like I said, I always ran a still filter on this, and I think it looks pretty good. At the bottom of the intake side, there's definitely some wear there. It feels smooth to my fingers, but as you can probably see, it's a little bit uneven, a little bit weird. The crank feels good in terms of, I guess there's the wrist pin bearing in that whole setup too, but it feels pretty good to me. Really the same as, you know, when I put in, when I built those other two saws, the 390 and the 372 are the most recent saws that I've done full rebuilds on, and that crank feels similar. I'm not saying it is, I'm just saying, you know, the play feels similar. Yeah, so that's kind of interesting. Yeah, I don't think there's anything crazy to see there. Okay, let's have a look inside the cylinder. So I always ran, let's put this over here. I always ran a decomp plug, like a bolt, as you can see, in the top end of this saw. I just didn't trust the decompression valves, especially because it's, you know, top mounted. But anyways, let's see if any bolts fall out. Not sure how well you can see that. So I'm definitely seeing, I can still see, I guess you would call them hash marks all the way around on the saw. But yeah, I'm noticing that on the intake side, it's lighter across, it's lighter in color across where the piston would run, like outside of the ports, the transfer ports on the intake side across here. To my eye, I don't know if you can see that, but it is definitely lighter. And I believe that's an indication that the plating, or whatever you want to call it in these Farmertec saws, the plating is either, it's worn. Either it's starting to get worn through, although the piston doesn't really, I don't know that it shows that, but it's certainly worn. I've seen that in other saws where it's kind of looks smooth like that, where the piston comes in contact with the cylinder walls and you start to see a lot of transfer onto the piston because the plating is worn through. I believe that is what is happening there. It's definitely rough, you know, like in retrospect, that's definitely a rough intake. Nothing broke off. There was no catastrophic failure. Same with the transfers. Like there's, I don't know if you can see that, but there's some pretty good roughness there, which whatever, the saw ran really well, but same with the transfer on the other side. Okay, so, and I'm noticing the same thing in terms of wear on the exhaust side. It looks a little bit lighter in color through here, not as much as on the intake side. Maybe that's just the lighting, or I'm not sure. And you may be able to see there's a few little funny score lines. And I can't really feel that with my nail or my skin, but you know, it's not terrible. Yeah, I see kind of around the between the upper transfer and the exhaust, it's quite shiny there on the one side and also on this side. So definitely some wear on the plating, I would say. Again, I'm not a saw mechanic, I'm not an expert. I'm just kind of going on what I see. Quite a bit of carbon in the combustion chamber. I thought that was going to be way worse, honestly. I'm not saying it's good, but like I said, I ran a lot of oil, and I always ran still oil in all my saws. I'm not saying it's the best, or you shouldn't use it, or you should, or whatever. I'm just telling you. Yeah, so that's pretty interesting to me. And again, this saw is 5 years old. I got it on the week of Father's Day 5 years ago, and I don't know how many hours it has on it, but the saw milled a lot of cedar. There would be months at a time where I'd go out every Saturday, and I would cut a pickup truckload of slabs, 8, 10, 12 foot slabs that were anywhere between a foot wide and 3 feet wide, maybe 30 inches, maybe not quite 36, but 32, somewhere in there. Anyways, good size slab. So what I'm trying to say is sustained cuts. Cuts where with a good chain, sometimes you're having to refuel before you get to the end of the log. So what I'm trying to say is sustained cuts, so high temperatures. And I don't know, I think these at the time, like if you were gonna buy a replacement top end, I don't know what they are now, but I wanna say they were like 20 or 25 Canadian dollars. If you got one like this, I don't know how you can argue that isn't really good value, but to my mind it is, but it just depends. If you want the best, if you want like a high degree of certainty in terms of longevity, I wouldn't go this way obviously, but it's just been my experience. So that's pretty interesting to me. I don't know if there's any sense in taking off the piston. I don't know that we'll see anything more, but yeah. I'm told that my top end from Canada Saw Parts is in the mail, or it will be soon. So I should have it in the next week or so. And maybe I'll do a video of installing that. That might be sort of interesting for some people. Let me just see here. I've got I don't know if I have the calipers out here. Oh, might have a battery. Oh, no, there it comes. So, fractions of an inch, millimeters. So this should be 54 millimeters. I don't know if I should take the rings out or let's just see. I'm just kind of curious what it is on top. If we, ugh. Also not a machinist, obviously. It's saying 53.65 millimeters. And I don't know if these are exactly supposed to be 54 or not. Oh, interesting. Okay. Down here it's saying, I don't know if you can see that, 54.1 millimeters. So the top was coming in a little bit. Let's go all the way to the bottom. That case is kind of going to be in my way. It's coming in a little bit smaller. Interesting. I don't know if it came like that or if that's where, I don't know. Same also this way. Interesting. Let's try again. Be nice to get a little bit lower. 53.83. Okay, let's try in the middle again. Oh, okay, maybe it was just I didn't have it quite straight. I don't know, 50, okay, it's pretty close anyways. I'm just curious what kind of wear there is top and bottom, but like I said, it doesn't really look, judging from the wear marks, it doesn't really look like it was rattling around in there. You know, the intake side, that lower skirt, these little wingy things. The top doesn't look bad. Yeah, I don't know. I hope that's interesting to someone anyways. We'll just get in a little bit closer because maybe you couldn't see, I'm not sure. There's the discharge, the exhaust side. See, there's some uneven wearing in places. The bottom of the skirt kind of in the middle also. And then there's some discoloring, I guess, from, I don't know if that's oil getting by. And then you can definitely see there's a shine and some wear, maybe even transfer, I'm not really sure. You guys could probably tell me better, but it just looks a little bit kind of grubby, I guess. I know it's the inside of a motor, a two-stroke motor, but that's pretty interesting. We'll do a little bit, try and get the light in there. Not sure how well you can see that. But yeah, it doesn't look terrible. Like I said, I'm not sure about that shininess on the intake and discharge sides. It's not really dramatic, I don't think, but it's definitely there, especially on the intake side. You can probably see it right there. So I don't know if I kept running this off, we would start to get pretty bad metal transfer onto the piston. I'm not sure. But yeah, there you go. There's what the inside of my saw looks like after 5 years. Your mileage may vary. But anyways, I hope that was interesting for you guys. And like I said, I will, I'll do a video, I think, of putting the new top end on, and maybe we'll do some cuts once it's broken in and stuff, and not scientific, of course, but I'm just curious to see how it'll run. Yeah, I don't know, maybe we'll do some other things like seals, maybe a carb kit. I mean, it's been running fine, but I'd hate to put a top end on there and then a couple months later a seal go or something. But yeah, I hope that was interesting to you guys. That's the MS660 from 5 years ago. It's July 1st of 2023 right now. So yeah, I hope that's interesting, and we'll catch you on the next one.